Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Scientific Approach podcast. We have a very special podcast today. First off, May the 4th, International
Hell
Holiday of
yeah.
Star Wars. Lincoln is showing some appreciation.
Yeah, I got Chewie with me today.
He brought Chewie with him to celebrate. And more importantly, we have a special guest from Ukraine. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Lisa. I am a first year political science student from Ukraine. Uh, basically, that's it, more or less.
Awesome. Well, it is an absolute pleasure having you today. So this is Sunday. It's 1 p.m. for us and it's 8 over there for you. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Awesome. And you said you're a first year at university in Ukraine?
First year.
Awesome. Love that. Um, so obviously I want to focus on the war and all the politics surrounding that. So my first question is just how has the war personally affected you and or your family?
I mean, in multiple ways. So my dad and his wife and their daughter, they lived in Belgium ever since because they happened to be abroad before 24th of February. So they just stayed there and they're living there now. And from here, I mean, 2022 was a total roller coaster
Hmm.
because university and everything like got shut down because nobody knew what to do. It like took 2 weeks-ish to sort of work out ways in which we can like work again and function again. I mean, that's the most, I don't know, funny thing that happened because, I mean, the first message ever like I got from my university on the 24th of February was when my head of the program sent us the letter with the topic war online regime, all from small, like no capital letters, no punctuation, just like war online regime. And like the text of the email in question was like, so guys, due to the beginning of the full-scale war from Russia, the classes will be held online now. Hope for your understanding. And we were like, oh, what's actually going on? Why? Why? Yeah, that was a lot. Also, they were testing air raid alarms in Lviv, and it was going on for like a couple of hours. And when the first one that was actually real, we heard it, we first like we're not sure whether they're testing it again. Um, my like our village house sort of near Kyiv where I live normally, it got occupied and it was under Russian occupation for quite some time before our military kicked them out of that place. So we got our home back, which is nice. I mean, it needed some fixing, of course, because they left a mess after themselves. Russian soldiers lived there probably. They stole random stuff like a bag of rice and an old laptop, which I
Hmm.
did not even know we had.
Hmm.
They left everything else. I mean, everything that actually mattered. So I mean, we got lucky in that, but there's this kind of small village where we have this house. It still has like traces of tanks on the streets, and we have like surveillance from cameras where like people were just randomly killed on the streets.
Hmm.
So I mean, I'm happy my parents were not there at the moment. I mean, they just went away for quite some time. Um, somewhere in 2023, my mom and my stepfather were able to return there, sort of, because it got relatively safe, and they live there now. And I mean, I still live in Lviv. Of course, our learning process got disturbed. Sort of, we have to go to shelter when like the air raid alarm is going on, and also a rocket killed the student from my university this year. But it, of course, is a lot safer than the territories where like the land hostilities are happening.
Hmm.
So it is possible to live here, but of course, I mean, when I'm talking about it, I'm feeling like it affected my life on so many levels, but I'm not noticing it in my like day-to-day interactions. It's just something that is, I don't know, integral to my life. And the only time where I actually feel like my life changed is when I'm talking to foreigners abroad, because
Hmm.
uh, I don't know, day to day, like problems people are talking about are very different from our day to day problems. And I'm like, oh, okay, so the person's like biggest concern is actually where they're going to have dinner today. I don't know.
Right.
It's not. I mean, whether like they will die today. I don't know. So something
There's
like
a
that.
big difference between those for sure. I'm wondering, a lot of people are affected by the war and it's been going on for a long time. Do you feel almost desensitized to everything that's happening?
I don't feel like people are desensitized toward what's happening here. But
Hmm.
people, of course, got more cynical. Because I mean, you cannot cry all the time,
Hmm.
obviously. Because normally, like a single daily event that happens here will make a normal person like cry, like very sad at least, or very upset. But you cannot be very sad and very upset all the time,
Hmm.
so you sort of emotionally adjust to that. But I feel like people got desensitized to what's happened, to every other problems like that are, not related to war in Ukraine, especially if it happens abroad. Because like if some kind of problematic scandalous things happens abroad, people tend to
Hmm.
be like, oh my God, Crimea rivers, they do not know what real problems are. Or even if it happens in Ukraine, someone's like, oh no, I mean, I'm getting bad grades, or like, oh no, I mean, I don't know if I'm going to be accepted in, don't know, university where I want to study or
Right.
whatever. Like normal problems, people are like, God, that's not a problem.
Hmm.
Like, uh, give up all that crying attitude. That's not even a problem.
Yeah.
Not everyone is like that. People, of course, react differently, but there is this like general tendency towards sort of a you know thinking that like normal problems are not problems anymore. So yeah,
Hmm. Yeah, different.
compassion is hard to get here. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like people I'm assuming have different priorities. The way you described it, like someone in a different country have concerns about what they're eating for dinner, but being in a country that's at war currently, your priority is not really thinking about that all that much compared
No,
to,
of course. Also, people still
maybe
feel
next week
like
I
it
have
is,
to move.
yeah, like it's very unfair. I
Hmm.
mean, why does this other person gets to worry about their dinner and
Hmm.
I need to worry, and like even in Ukraine, thank God, I mean, no one from my like closest circle was killed by any of this. So,
Hmm.
I mean, all
Is
my
that?
loved ones are safe. But there are other people who are
Hmm.
like, why do I need for someone, I don't know, someone's father, husband, brother, sister is on the front line, and
Hmm.
they're like, why do I need to worry about my loved one being at the risk of being killed every single day, and some other person gets to worry about their dinner? Like,
hmm
how is that fair?
Yeah. And that's a good perspective, for anyone obviously who's listening and not in Ukraine. So, it's much appreciated to hear about the attitude and perspective of being there, and hopefully people have empathy over that. My next question is, what do you wish people outside of Ukraine in these other countries um, better understood about what's happening?
Okay, so first of all, I'm thinking obviously like people who are educated on the situation, so to say, they do not tend to like produce this narrative, but generally a lot of people on social media tend to produce this narrative. So I mean, I'm going to address it anyway,
hmm
that like just stopping fighting is like peaceful, or that giving weapons to Ukraine is supporting war. Like that's not true.
hmm
So something I would, and like I feel like every Ukrainian would very much like for people to understand is that uh, Russia can stop this war right now,
hmm
today, without like any kind of negotiations. Like, if Russia wants peace, Russia can have peace today simply by like moving their troops away from Ukraine. Ta-da, peace. But that's not happening. And
hmm
that not happening means that Russia does not want peace.
hmm
Means that everything I don't know about saying how, oh, but maybe Putin wants peace, but maybe if you stop giving weapons to Ukraine, you will stop sponsoring war. No, that's not how it works.
hmm
Giving weapons to Ukraine is supporting peace, because
Yeah.
peace is where Russian troops are not on Ukrainian territory. I mean, Ukraine does not want to attack Russia. It's obvious for me. I don't know, like who needs to hear that. But I mean, if we think like even territory-wise, like Ukraine, Russia, if you ever
hmm
looked on the map, like Russia is literally the biggest country in the world. I do not know why do they feel like they need more, but
hmm
somehow they feel like they need more, and that's why people in my country are dying, not because people in my country decided to randomly, I don't know, shoot some Russian people or something like that. That's not what's happening. That's the first
hmm
thing. Second thing is sort of more complicated. I don't know. It's I hear it even from people who like are educated on the situation, but still, like a misunderstanding I frequently meet is when people are saying why Ukrainians do not want to work with Russian opposition. Because, like, from the surface level, it makes sense. Like, Russian opposition doesn't like Putin. Ukrainians obviously do not like Putin. So why you like cannot work together to overthrow Putin? Like, and why? I mean, everyone's happy after that. Like first important thing to understand here is that there is no opposition in Russia that is truly opposition. I mean, everyone who was a real challenge to Putin's power is either outside of Russia right now, in jail, or dead.
hmm
Uh, Second thing, even like the brightest figures of Russian opposition, like Alexei Navalny, for example, um, they do not like Putin. Like they do not like what Putin is doing to Russians and to Russian citizens, but they are completely okay with Russia being an imperialistic, piece of shit that just randomly bullies neighboring countries. There's like this
hmm
famous thing when Navalny was asked whether he would return Crimea to Ukraine if he becomes president, to which he responded, um, well, Crimea is not a sandwich to give it back and forth. So, which like means that no, Crimea stays with Russia, which is like Russian opposition is not okay with abuse of human rights that happens in Russia, but Russia is okay with abuse of human rights towards people in other countries, which is why Ukrainians do not want to work with the Russian opposition,
hmm
because we care less about what happens inside of Russia. That's your problem, guys. You do you. we care about what happens to our country when Russia is our neighbor. We cannot move. Russia will be our neighbor anyway. So yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
And just to add to that, to give evidence towards your claims here, I think one thing, the last that I checked, there were ceasefires with Russia, which Russia had broken
Violated, yes.
25 times the last time I checked.
Yes. And
So that doesn't
also
really seem like a country to
a
appease
peace-loving country, yes.
try to make deals with.
Yeah, also another thing is I often hear that, well, of course, Putin is bad and what he's doing is bad and everything,
Hmm.
but Russian people are good, they do not want this, so like hence we should not punish normal Russian people for this, hence we should not have sanctions and like
Hmm.
for some, like I will not explain here how economic sanctions like help not funding Putin's war machine. I will like dive deeply into how regular Russian people are not responsible for this, so to say.
Hmm.
Well, first of all, it is not like hundreds of thousands Putins fighting in Ukraine,
Hmm.
like killing, raping Ukrainian people and committing other atrocities. These are regular Russian people who have regular Russian families, who
Hmm.
commit regular war crimes and like whose families regularly support them. And the second claim that usually goes for this is like Russian culture is so rich, like Russian literature, Russian music, um, the world's sort of culture heritage would be nothing without Russia, and henceforth, Russian culture can't be like rejected like that. Um, to me, to summarize sort of the idea of Russian culture is like probably I don't know if it's in American schools, but I think it is. You do read Crime and Punishment by Dostoevsky at school, and there is this thing where the main character finds himself struggling with money, with like his life circumstances. He thinks the system is unfair, like why does not he have money and stuff. So he like and he's wondering whether he can kill that granny and like steal money from her because she's like a dead person. So he comes to his friend and he shares his concerns with his friend, like, hey, I do not have money. I eat shitty food. I live shitty life. I cannot support my family. What can I do? And his friend says, hey, you see, I found a really good paying job and we can do it together so that we can do it quickly and like earn more money. What do you say we do it together? And the main character refuses and goes on to kill the granny. And to me, that pretty much summarizes the idea of Russian culture right now that if you have problems, you do not go solve your problems. You make everyone else around also have problems. You're like, so there, if there's inequality and we are like oppressed, everyone else should be oppressed as well. We do not
Hmm.
like fight oppression towards ourselves. We fight with everyone around us because like how dare you live better than us, so to say. What I mean to say is not that there is not a single good Russian person. No, what
Hmm.
I mean to say is that what's happening is a cultural thing. It is not a Putin thing. If Putin goes, someone else comes, and it continues until
Hmm.
there is an institutional change, a
So
culture level of change. Yes.
So are you saying like that's just how the current influence feels, like the
Uh,
influence of the country on, I guess, other people, the way you described it in like oppressing
yes,
others.
I mean, it was from like, Russian Empire,
Hmm.
this idea transferred to Soviet Union, and
Yes.
then this idea transferred to independent Russia, and that's general like national idea, I mean, of Russia, that Russia is big and great if it is an empire, if it is sort of guiding its neighbors, and so to say, in the way to solve the situation where Russia is attacking all of its neighbors, like not only Ukraine, I mean Georgia, I mean Finland, I mean like many countries around Russia really,
Hmm.
is where there is a cultural shift from we are big and we are strong and we can fight everyone to well, maybe it's not the way to deal with things.
Hmm.
So what I mean to say is that this issue lies deeply within Russian society, and Putin is not like just some kind of bad guy who just goes and the problem is solved. That's generally what I mean to say, that it's
Hmm.
not just personality connected problem, but more like society related problem.
Right. So overall, it's very complicated, and I'm glad you bring that up because a lot of people will simplify war into like a black and white thing where they're like two distinct sides, but that's not true in like any war. So I'm glad that you brought up the feelings of like people and influence, and I want to go into that later for sure. And just to be clear, the story you brought up, you said it was Crime and Punishment, correct?
Yeah, yeah, by Dostoevsky. It's sort of his most popular book that people read in schools all around the world, which is why I think it is a useful example.
Awesome. Yeah, and I just wanted to highlight that because I have not heard or read of that before, so I'm
Oh, come
interested in
on, man.
that.
It's a classic.
Hey, I haven't been historically as invested into politics as other people here, Lincoln. My background is in science, Lisa, so I've worked in healthcare, and I'm going to be going back to school for engineering. So I certainly appreciate politics, and
But you have a real degree, yeah, I
no, 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 no,
understand.
no, 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 not yet, not yet. Um, But anyways, so I think people maybe who are in the similar background as me would appreciate that. Um, I want to kind of break down real quick because we initially started talking about what we wished other countries understood about Ukraine. Ukraine is on the defensive. Okay.
Yes.
There's a lot of attitude of like Ukraine made Russia upset, so that justified attacking Ukraine. Um, and that is a narrative that's pushed by Russian propaganda and stuff. And I want to know what your feelings are when people like the President of the United States also pushes that propaganda. Is it frustrating or is it something else?
Of course, it is frustrating. I mean, no
Hmm.
one's happy about President of the United States uh, turning his back on Ukraine in this
Hmm.
regard, so to say. I mean, when the whole thing in the Oval Office happened, me and my friends, we were just coming from a party to one of our friends' place. So what we thought we would have like an after party, drink and sing. What we had instead, we all just sat in front of the TV like this.
Hmm.
And first of all, the claim that Ukrainian people don't support Zelensky and he is somehow a dictator because there are no elections in Ukraine right now. First of all, it is martial law that is defined by the constitution of Ukraine that there can be no elections during wartime. And it is important to note that even those in Ukraine who do not like Zelensky as a politician and do not want him in office, they do not want to re-elect him right now
Hmm.
because it is like better to, not violate the constitution than to have your preferred politician in office for them. Secondly, the whole thing that happened in Oval Office only strengthened his support because even, for example, head of my program again, who really does not like Zelensky as a politician. When the whole thing happened, he posted on his Facebook like that, hey, that man protected our dignity today and stuff like that. So people only started viewing him as like leader of the nation more, so to say. So yeah,
Hmm.
the claims that people in Ukraine don't support him is not valid. Other thing, yeah, about how we felt, betrayed, probably, yes. Some disappointed because some people did not like how the decision were made under Biden's administration, so they hoped that a Republican administration would make things faster, and more decisive. Uh,
Hmm.
what is happening right now is not what they hoped for, obviously. So
Mhm.
they are frustrated, angry, but also we understand that like no matter how angry we are, that's not going to change. We cannot influence who is the president of the United States.
Mhm.
We cannot influence the administration's attitude towards Ukraine that much because they have their views and their strategies already made, and we can only react from our side. So we have this saying, "Do your thing." We're like, okay, so you're upset about what Trump said today. Go donate to Ukrainian army, or like go do something constructive instead of whining about that because we
Mhm.
cannot change that, obviously. So we sort of try this mechanism to convert our anger and frustration and sadness into something productive.
Mhm. Yeah. And just real quick to vouch at least for some Americans here, as bad as our administration illustrates the events in Ukraine and Russia, and as bad as the media also in America portrays that, there are some Americans who understand the situation and definitely feel empathy towards that. So, and we're trying. We don't have a lot of power right now, but we feel for you guys and we're working on it. And even with the even with the Biden administration, there were definitely some critiques, but at least just to illustrate some of the attitude for people who are across the world but on your side, we want it to get better for you guys for sure. So,
Yeah, there
I'm
was
not
also
there, but I feel the frustration. Um, and you guys also like Russia, huge propaganda arm. And you guys have been, I assume, fighting against that um, for a long time and trying to break away from that. So uh, it feels like almost US is just kind of kicking the sand back in your face, and it's just like you guys just got rid of it. Um, what is the attitude? And you kind of described it a little bit. I see Zelensky as kind of how you described it. You know, this man is standing up for your country. He seemed very stoic in that interview, specifically with Trump and JD Vance. While they were making fun of him for not wearing a suit or saying thank you. In my mind, I saw that, you know, Zelensky was acting very humbly. And the way I see him communicate on Twitter, like he seems really good at communicating and being transparent and like, hey, I'm talking to these leaders and we're making all these deals. And like he has whatever background or whatever people are going to say about him. But I see him as a really good and impactful leader right now. What is the general attitude that you feel and other Ukrainians feel towards him?
well, again, concerning that situation in the Oval Office, um, there was a statement by Iranian president who said that Trump should not have behaved like that towards Zelensky, and we were like, picture this, like you're in 2022 and someone tells you that Iranian president is going to defend Zelensky against American president, and like no one would believe that. Like apparently Iran hates the US more than they love Russia. But anyway, given the attitude towards Zelensky, his political opponent during last elections, Petro Poroshenko, was mainly running on the idea that Poroshenko, is like this leader of the nation. He's strong. He's a hetman. Hetman is a term, like is a term in Ukraine for like there was a historical sort of position of a leadership in Ukraine, like
Mhm.
in 15th, 16th century, that was called a hetman, and like leader of the Cossacks. So sort of at the same time a state leader and a leader of an army, which is why like Petro Poroshenko positioned himself as this like hetman who can strengthen army, who can
Hmm.
strengthen the recognition of Ukrainian language and the recognition of Ukrainian Orthodox Christian Church as the one separate from Russian. His slogans were army, language, face, like that. And he portrayed Zelensky instead as like some weak comedian guy who cannot do anything, who is like just like this weak, small, funny guy. And when the war, full-scale war, I mean, started in 2022, um, that image like shifted vice versa. Zelensky like
Hmm.
gained this image of a guy who can handle a war, and
Hmm.
so he had like 90% of support, which was unspeakable. Like, can you imagine any politician in the US having 90% of support?
No,
Like,
yeah.
it's
I mean,
never more
generally,
than
like
55,
in
57 tops. And
absolutely, yeah.
yeah,
Generally,
and
like if you get
Ukraine
60%,
is the
that's like a
same. Like,
landslide.
so, of course, like in these years since 2022, his support sort of went down a bit because
Hmm.
apart from fighting the war, we also have other political issues, of course, like budget transparency, like education, healthcare, and that sort
Hmm.
of stuff. And his administration is not handling it perfectly, of course. Like, I mean, none of the administrations handle that perfectly. And there are corruption scandals, yes. But there also are much bigger corruption scandals in Russia,
Hmm.
and um, and there are corruption scandals everywhere. But what I mean to say is that, of course, there are issues with him and his administration, which is why less people support him now than used to support him in the beginning of full-scale invasion. But people still are like, so, okay, maybe I want another guy in the office, but I want to use my right to vote after war is over, when I can peacefully go to the polling station without worrying that Russia will use election as an opportunity to bomb me and many other people that are gathered like at one place, which is like polling station, for example.
Hmm.
Or I am going to vote where when the opinions of people who live in territories that are right now in like land hostilities will also be considered.
Hmm.
Like, because of course, if we do the election now, people who live on the front line, like, they cannot vote. People
Hmm.
who fight on the front line cannot vote. And that is a very concerning issue because these people are the ones who are risking their lives for this country, meaning that their vote should be counted 100%. What do you mean? They do not have a say in a
Hmm.
future of this country. So, yes, people even who sort of think that maybe like Zelensky and his administration should not be in office, they should be out of office after the war, like not right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that kind of brings it back to like the Constitution allowing for pauses in the elections per martial law. Um, My next question is kind of in terms of other Western support, not just the US, but like France is stepping up a lot to help out Ukraine. England is stepping up a lot to help Ukraine. I've seen a lot from Denmark, Finland, other countries, NATO countries. What is the attitude towards them kind of stepping up and showing that they're here for you?
First of all, that's thank God kind of attitude that like the US stepping away doesn't mean we're doomed.
Hmm.
Secondly, that's finally kind of attitude because
Hmm.
Mm, I mean, if there is any positive consequences to the behavior of Trump and his administration, it is that Europe sort of woke up. and like started doing something,
You heard it
and
here
that
from a Ukrainian. Europe's woke. You heard it, and it's a good thing.
Yeah, and we really hope that leads us somewhere, that it's not just, a wave of support that's going to like
Hmm.
vanish in some time, because the very important things that we've been trying to communicate since beginning of things, that Russia is not to be appeased. Russia will not stop at east of Ukraine. Russia
Hmm.
will not stop at Ukraine. History taught us enough lessons on that. So
Right. Absolutely.
maybe if you guys started considering your like the issue of Ukrainian security as the issue of your own security,
Hmm.
we can get places.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I want to expand on that actually, because that's I think an important point that Zelensky specifically was trying to make during his interview with Trump, in that, yes, like we have oceans between, like an ocean between Europe and then a bunch of land that, is like a barrier between the US and Ukraine and Russia, which is very far away, but Russia, if they attack one country, will then attack other countries, and they're not getting punished for this, and that's going to be
Yeah.
like them, attacking others. So
Yeah.
Zelensky's message to Trump is like, even though you're far away, like it's going to be at your doorstep if you don't help
Yeah, you're
out.
gonna feel the consequences. I mean, not that he was saying that Russia is going to attack United States,
Hmm.
because I mean that seems impossible. Like no one in their right mind would directly launch a military attack on United States, but
Hmm.
um, it puts a precedent, because I mean the whole world sort of tries to move towards nuclear disarmament, you know?
Hmm.
The greatest case of nuclear disarmament was Ukraine giving up its nuclear weapons when it gained independence in 1991. So yeah, it's also an
Hmm.
important message to understand that help to Ukraine is not charity.
Hmm.
It is a international obligation of nuclear countries towards Ukraine, because Ukraine gave up nuclear weapons
Hmm.
in exchange for a promise of protection if
Hmm.
that's the case, that Ukraine is attacked. Well, the funniest thing about that agreement is that Russia was one of the signatories. So, like, Russia was supposed to protect Ukraine if Ukraine
Right.
ever got attacked. Well, that's like funsies now, of course. But the other signatories to that document were the United States, the United Kingdom, and France.
Hmm.
And meaning that France, United Kingdom, and the United States are actually lawfully obliged to protect Ukraine.
Hmm.
Um, and like that's one thing. Another thing is that puts a precedent. Like if Russia gets what it wants right now, no country in the world will ever give up nuclear weapons,
Hmm.
because that's what you get for giving them up. You get another nuclear country and you at your doorstep, and no one does anything about it. Everyone's like, okay, if Russia wants Ukraine, Russia can have Ukraine.
Hmm.
Then, like, how do you expect anyone else to give up nuclear weapons, or like not develop nuclear weapons if they have the capacity to? Because like so far, nuclear weapons proved to be a stronger, protection than international treaties.
Right.
And
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
which is why the issue of like Ukrainian security is the issue of worldwide security. If Putin is let like have Ukraine, um, China can have Taiwan. Uh, all
Hmm.
international, bullies get
Yep.
to do whatever they want, because like if Russia is not afraid to do whatever it wants, why others should be? Like what's gonna happen? Everyone is going to be deeply concerned. Well, deep concern never stopped anyone from attacking neighboring countries so far.
Yeah, absolutely. And on those two things, when it comes to like that appeasement stuff, a good referral is just the historic evidence of, well, what happened with Germany when we appeased them? Well, that didn't help. And you're referring to the Budapest Memorandum in 1991,
Yes, yes, I am.
where, like you said, and I just wanted to clarify this for anyone who is unsure of this, the Budapest Memorandum was signed by the countries you listed, the UK, France, Russia, and US, saying, "Hey, Ukraine's going to get rid of their nukes. Um, but if we get attacked by anything, you guys are going to come help us because we just gave this up for you, right?" So that's one reason why the US and other countries should come to their defense because it's a written treaty. Also, some of the attitudes in America have been like, oh, well, they've never helped us before, so why should we give them help now? That's not even true. In the wars in the Middle East, Ukraine sent troops who died for us in Afghanistan and other countries as well. So, all the more reason why the U.S. should be more supportive of Ukraine. At the very least, like we talked about earlier, I'm trying to make this sound positive. France and you in the UK and other countries are stepping up for sure. So I hope that continues, and I don't think that it's a PR stunt from France and these other countries to do that. You know, it seems like they really care, and I think that should be something that the media and a lot of people focus on. That this matters for sure, and people matter. Um, and just real quick, when it comes to like information that you guys get, and also for the rest of the world, what's a source of news, I guess, that you would recommend people to follow for the events that are occurring?
Um, of course, I mean, first thing that pops up to my mind, like if you want something to be credible, but you also do not want to read like a page long or a couple of pages long articles because you don't have time. It's a United 24 platform. It is basically president's platform, so you cannot get any more official. It's the most official thing you have. Another thing, like there is Hromadske media. I'm going to write it in the chat because I'm not sure you'll get spelling. Is
I was gonna ask you.
it's like here. Basically, in Ukrainian, it means like community or like civil sort of thing, which basically means that like their philosophy is that they are a media of civil society, meaning they are not funded by government, and neither they are funded by any of like rich businessmen called oligarchs over here or something like that. They
Hmm.
are community funded, which like makes them sort of unbiased. Yeah, and give like the most, unbiased version of the news. Yeah.
Awesome. Appreciate that a lot. And I'll write these down in the description for the podcast so people can check those out and follow. I still have some
Sean,
more. Yeah.
before you go on, I do have to bounce out of here in about 10-ish minutes. So if you wanted to like uh wrap up with whatever final question you had, and we
Mhm.
can sign off if that sounds good with everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Lisa, does 10 more minutes kind of work for you?
Yeah, completely.
Absolutely. Okay, awesome. Um, so I want to ask a couple more questions. My first question, um, so the demographic in Ukraine and Russia, I mean, obviously bordering countries, and especially in Crimea, I understand there was a lot of Russian influence there before it was annexed. In the rest of Ukraine, are there, Russian people still living there? I'm just wondering what the attitude specifically towards Russian people are, and like where they live and all that, and how it kind of mixes.
Okay, so of course, a lot of Russian people lived in Ukraine.
Hmm.
Some voluntarily, who like moved for work or whatever reasons they had. Others, Soviet Russia had this policy where they moved their retired generals and their families to other countries so that Russian presence remains there, so to say. That's what happened basically to most of Eastern Ukrainian territories.
Hmm.
They erased or forcibly moved Ukrainians from there in the depths of Russian territory, like to Siberia and that sort of stuff, and they moved Russian people there instead, so the fact that part of Ukrainian population in Eastern Ukrainian territories was like pro-Russian is because they were Russian.
Hmm.
Uh, mm, but things have changed since then, of course, and while a lot of people in Ukraine are ethnically Russian, they do not identify as Russian because, like, why would you?
Hmm.
uh, Russians are those who kill us, like we are not Russians. So like people are, why would I identify with people who are murdering my people here and who attempt at murdering me all the time?
Hmm.
So I know a lot of people who have families in Russia who they like broke ties with because of that,
Hmm.
because they're like, if you are not supporting my right to live, you're no family to me. Like, why would I call you part of my life, part of
Hmm.
my family, so to say? Also, um, for example, the main like general of Ukrainian army, Alexander Sersky, is Russian, actually, and
When you say he's Russian, do you just mean his background, or did
I
he?
mean, he was born in Russia and
Okay.
he graduated high school in Russia, and he first like, I don't know if he had higher education there, but he definitely lived there up to 15, 16, 17 years of
Hmm.
like, so he is ethnically Russian and he grew up in Russia. But he
Hmm.
then moved to Ukraine and he devoted his whole life, like I mean professional life, to Ukrainian army, which is why there is no reason to call him Russian in like political meaning of the word, so to
Hmm.
say. And he, oh, of course, he identifies with you like as Ukrainian, even though he might have like Russian accent when he speaks Ukrainian and stuff like
Hmm.
that. So like the fact that he is like ethnically and overall like Russian does not like make any kind of opposition to him in Ukraine, because
Yeah.
a lot of my professors at university love to say that Ukrainian identity is a very special thing because it's not enough to be Ukrainian to be Ukrainian. Because there was, I'm not sure, I don't want to lie, but there was, I think, one congresswoman in the US, I'm not sure which chamber, but she gave an interview where she says, so as a one and only congressperson of Ukrainian origin, I want to say that like we should make peace with Russia. Like she was saying some and bunch of anti-Ukrainian stuff, and like one of my professors said that you do not, it's not enough to be Ukrainian to be Ukrainian.
Hmm.
Like it's less about where you were born and who your parents, grandparents, so to say, were, and more about the choice you make.
Hmm.
Of course, that choice is tied to your origin, so to say. For example, for me, I was born in Ukrainian. Both of my parents were born in Ukrainian. Uh, all my grandparents were born in Ukraine, so
Hmm.
like that only made sense for me to identify as Ukrainian. But for
Right.
many people, it was not like that. For many people, it was a choice they had to make because of, yeah, a bunch of stuff.
Hmm. Yeah, and just to call out that Congresswoman Victoria Sparks, yeah, she's a Republican,
Obviously, why am I
and
not
I
so?
know exactly who you're talking about when you said that, even without her name. We see that. Um, yeah, so that's interesting. So is it kind of cut and dry where you're either supporting Ukraine regardless of your background or you're
Yes.
supporting Russia? I'm wondering, is there still like negative feelings or like stigma to people who are Russian, ethnically Russian, but still support Ukraine?
there is stigma towards those people,
Hmm.
depending on what do you mean by support Ukraine, because there are
Yeah.
different levels of support, different level of commitment, because if you live in Ukraine, it's hard to support Russia. Like
Right.
it's impossible practically. Like, why would you support Russia living in Ukraine? That makes no sense. So
Hmm.
when those people live in Ukraine already, there's probably like mm, little to no stigma towards them. We
Yeah.
have like we have another kind of internal issues, language regarding, because a lot of people, like my parents and my grandparents, were bullied into or forced into speaking Russian,
Hmm.
even though they were like naturally Ukrainian speaking.
Hmm.
So that a lot of kids, including me when I was a kid, were brought up speaking Russian. Uh, I mean, I knew both languages from my childhood, but in my day-to-day life, I would normally speak Russian because my parents brought me up like that.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, later when I grew up, I realized there was like a colonial kind of trauma, so I would not want to bring that to my kids, for example. So, I mean, when I was 17, when I got into university, I switched to Ukrainian, and I speak Ukrainian in my day-to-day life right now because it's
Hmm.
important for me as a political statement. Also, like. I can speak about it for an hour, why on many levels why it is important to speak Ukrainian
Hmm.
and not Russian, but it's our internal issue, and people fight each other on that matters a lot. People
Hmm.
are like, but like, why do you prohibit me to speak Russian? It's more natural for me, and on the other thing, but like other and other stuff,
Hmm.
and people can call each other aggressive things based on that, but it's more again about your conscious choice, what you do in your day-to-day life, rather than where you were born or how you were brought up, so to say. So like all those conflicts within society are about what you do, not about where you came from.
Right. People can change, and everyone, based on experience, has a side.
Oh,
Um,
I've heard a lot of stuff like, hey, you speak Russian, you are the enemy of the state, for example, which is aggressive. I do not agree with that, but I
hmm.
mean, I heard that. But I never heard, hey, you were born in Russia, you are the enemy of the state. Or, hey, like one of your parents are Russian, so you are like
Hmm.
out of my life. I've never heard anything like that.
Yeah. Um, so, and I want to ask one final question, and I want to kind of step back and uh, review everything we've talked about. We've talked about, diplomatic, the Budapest Memorandum, official things. We've talked about your personal stories and the attitudes towards people and how the media influences things. My final question is, um, in the short and long term. What are your hopes for Ukraine's future? And I guess what would you think would be the best for Ukraine?
Um, well, we often say that the best for Ukraine and for everyone would be if we could just have this big, big, big sea instead of Russia. But if we are talking realistic things,
Hmm.
well, of course, victory in the war, like Ukrainian territories under Ukrainian control as recognized by the world community in 1991. We do not want more, but we also do not want less. We just want our territories. That would be amazing. Also, membership in the European Union, membership in NATO, even though a lot of people are second guessing it right now because people are not sure that NATO is a very effective organization given the um, unsureness of current American administration towards protecting towards Article 5, like
Yeah,
and stuff like
don't
that.
blame you for those
People
feelings.
Yeah, people in Ukraine are not sure whether NATO is actually the best thing we can get, but European Union for sure, that would be amazing. And I mean, democratic elections, I'm looking forward to that. I never got to vote because the full-scale invasion started when I was 18, meaning like, yeah, and Zelensky was not yet due. Yeah, to get reelected. So I've never voted. I'm I'm interested in in this experience. I
Mhm.
want to experience that. Of course, like better education, better healthcare, um, overall, like making more products that are final products that, rather than simply exporting raw materials, which we will be unfortunately doing more due to a certain treaty with the United States of
Hmm.
America
Yeah.
from recent time. But whatever we can afford. But again, all those, sort of vivid dreams about prosperity, they only can be realized if we have security, like the the Maslow pyramid. I don't know if you have that like pyramid of
Yeah.
human needs.
Maslow's
We
hierarchy
talk
of
about that a lot.
needs.
We are
Yeah.
at the bottom right now. We are dealing with security, and when
Mhm.
we've dealt with that, we can, move on to more like
Yeah.
sophisticated
For
desires.
anyone who's unfamiliar with Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the very bottom rung is fighting for food and shelter and just basic security. And that is, it's seemingly a very noble ask. You're not asking for much here. So just to emphasize, what you're looking for, it seems like you just want to live normally
Yeah,
without
that
having to
would be
think about
great. That
just
would be great.
have some peace, have some security, not have to think about moving. Um,
Just, to worry about what will I have for dinner.
yeah,
That's what I'm
absolutely. That's
asking.
yeah, not lack of worries, but different worries. Um,
Yeah.
well, thank you so much for being here and taking the time out of your day to answer all these questions. Lincoln, any kind of final remarks here?
Yeah, this was fantastic. Lisa, I mean, I tr truly appreciate you coming on. I know Sean certainly appreciated. He certainly learned a ton, I'm sure. Um, and I'd just like to end on wishing everybody a happy May 4th, and I hope the force is with you both.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning into the Scientific Approach. This is Sean, Lincoln, which is everyone. Happy May the 4th. Thank you, Lincoln. Lisa, any final remarks?
I hope what I said was not like too obvious. I hope someone, I don't know, maybe learns something new from this and this was actually helpful. And yes, and I'm really, grateful for all the support we get today. I want to say, I don't know, heart-warming hi and thank you to all of the people out there who support Ukraine. And it's really important for us. We know that Donald Trump is not all of the America, and it is very important for us that there are still people who stand by our side. May the force be with us. May the force be with you towards also like fighting for a better life in your country.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so, so much. Thank you, everyone who's still listening. Comment in the comment section what you guys think. And Slava Ukraine.
Героям слава.